There are not many powers on earth more powerful than the tongue. According to the Bible, our tongues have the power to kill and are described as full of deadly poison. But its power can also give life and restore brokenness if only we allow God to mature us. On Walk Talks this week, Seth Gillespie highlights vital truths in James 3 that will help us all in taming the tongue.
Welcome back to another day of Walk Talks. Today we're going to jump right back in with James 3, 5 through 8. Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. In verse 5, James is referring back to the two illustrations from verse 4 about the small things that can control larger things, the horse's bit and the rudder of a ship. It also teaches in verse 5 that the tongue boasts great things. Boasting is a common sin of someone who has become the slave to pride. Psalm 12 describes the character of those who misuse their tongue as someone who constantly utters lies to their neighbors and those around them, as someone who flatters others for gain but doesn't have an honest heart. We then read that those who misuse their tongues will receive punishment from the Lord, specifically those who speak with pride. Our mouths and pride are mentioned all over the Bible. Proverbs 14:3 says, "In the mouth of the foolish is a rod of pride, but the lips of the wise shall preserve them." The second part of verse 5 says, "Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth." This phrase is talking about the danger and the destruction of one little spark or flame. One word that we speak in the wrong way could, as the Bible puts it, kindle a much larger fire. We need to constantly be on guard, watching our tongues, making sure that everything we say, all of our speech, is honoring to the Lord. James uses some interesting phrases in verse 6, and it can be a little difficult to understand. He compares the tongue to fire. One example of how words can spread as quickly as fire is gossip. I'm sure that we've all fallen into the trap of listening to gossip and repeating it to others. The Bible is telling us here that our words spread quickly and can harm. James then uses the phrase, "a world of iniquity," to show us that our words can cause destruction worldwide. Thomas Manton put it this way, "It is rapid and violent. Quickly it sets aflame in anger, revenge, retaliation. It flares up like a barn filled with hay and consumes and controls everything inside the barn until it destroys the barn also." The sin of gossip and spreading rumors can consume and control us before we even realize it. In verses 7 and 8, James is once again trying to show us how unruly and how impossible it is to tame the tongue without God's help. James lists beasts and birds, serpents, and things in the sea. He says they've all been tamed. Man has learned how to tame them. But then he tells us in verse 8 that no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. James is basically likening our tongue to a wild beast, basically a poisonous tiger. James has made it clear that we cannot tame our own tongues. Let's look at a few other passages that can help us give God control of our tongues. The first one is Joshua 1:8. "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success." The idea here is to be constantly dwelling on God's law. If we're thinking and meditating on truth day in and day out, it's pretty hard to stray and allow our tongues to start speaking evil. Psalm 19:14 says it again. "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer." The psalmist here is asking for strength from the Lord, that his words and the meditation of his heart would be acceptable, that he would think and be dwelling on truth and righteousness. Psalm 51:15. O Lord, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall show forth thy praise. Once again, the psalmist is asking the Lord to open his lips, not himself. He asks the Lord to allow him to speak praise, or speak of things that are acceptable to God. Psalm 71:8 says, Let my mouth be filled with thy praise, and with thy honor all the day. Psalm 139:4, For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Psalm 141:3, Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth, keep the door of my lips. In all these verses, there is a common theme. May my lips be filled with thy praise. The psalmist asks the Lord over and over to keep watch over his lips, that he might only speak of the goodness of God. James 3:8, But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Poison can quickly kill or cause a slow, agonizing death. The tongue can do the same. Let's not any of us think that we are above hurting others with our tongues. Instead of being quick to share the most recent gossip we heard, let's make our priority to be quick to share the goodness of God with all those around us.
Thanks for being a part of Walk Talks today by listening and subscribing to our podcast. Follow us on social media for sneak peeks at future episodes and to share your favorites with others who would benefit as well. We hope your heart has been enriched by God's Word to take your next step in following Christ.